Copenhagen, October 2nd, 2025. As European leaders gathered in Denmark's capital for the latest meeting of the European political community, the focus was on two pressing issues: the surge in illegal migration across the continent and Europe's continued military and financial support for Ukraine. Yet, for Britain's Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, another matter loomed just as urgently: a damning new investigation into the Metropolitan Police. Speaking to reporters shortly after arriving in Copenhagen, Starmer described the findings of the BBC's investigation into misconduct within the UK's largest police force as both disturbing and unacceptable. He called for an immediate and decisive response from the Metropolitan Police's leadership, describing the situation as a test of institutional accountability. Sir Keir Starmer said, "I've not yet seen the footage, but I've had it described to me, and it's shocking, and I'm glad the Commissioner is responding. He needs to be very robust in his response." The Prime Minister's comments came at a moment when the credibility of British policing has been under intense public scrutiny following multiple high-profile cases of misconduct and abuse of power. The BBC investigation, according to early reports, uncovered new evidence of misogynistic and racist behaviour among serving officers, conduct that Starmer suggested could further erode public trust if not addressed decisively. Starmer's emphasis on a robust response underscored his expectation that the Metropolitan Police Commissioner take clear and immediate steps to restore confidence in the force. The Prime Minister made it clear that this was not merely a domestic issue, but one that carried wider implications for the rule of law and governance in Britain. Starmer stressed, "I'm glad the Commissioner is responding. He needs to be very robust in his response." Those words, delivered as European leaders convened to discuss geopolitical crises, highlighted the dual focus of Starmer's leadership, addressing urgent internal challenges while navigating complex international priorities. Turning to the main business of the Copenhagen summit, Starmer confirmed that migration was high on the agenda, with particular attention on the ongoing challenge of irregular crossings into Europe. When asked whether European leaders were moving toward a united, more hardline stance on immigration, Starmer responded candidly. Sir Keir Starmer said, "Well, yes, we're certainly discussing illegal migration and looking at what options we can take together. Obviously, I've always argued that working with other countries is always a stronger response. So we're looking at a number of options there. There's a big appetite for it, and a number of countries are looking at what we can do. So we'll be looking at that." Starmer's words reflected a long-standing theme of his foreign policy approach, that collaboration with international partners is essential to tackling transnational issues like migration and organised crime. His remarks also signalled Britain's willingness to engage constructively with European neighbours, despite the political complexities of the post-Brexit landscape. For the UK Prime Minister, the migration issue is not only a border management challenge, but also a question of regional solidarity. He framed the debate as one that demanded collective responsibility rather than fragmented national policies. By acknowledging a big appetite among European partners to pursue joint solutions, Starmer suggested that there was growing momentum across the continent to strengthen cooperation, possibly through shared frameworks for border enforcement, asylum processing, and tackling smuggling networks. This approach aligns with Starmer's broader message that major crises, whether humanitarian, economic, or security-related, cannot be effectively resolved in isolation. In addition to migration, Starmer emphasised that support for Ukraine would be the other dominant theme of the day's discussions. Sir Keir Starmer said, "There is also then obviously the question of Ukraine and how we put in more support for Ukraine, pressure on Putin. So it'll already be migration and Ukraine, the two dominant issues of the discussion today." His remarks reinforced the enduring importance of Ukraine on the European political agenda nearly 3 years into Russia's full-scale invasion. As winter approaches, Kyiv continues to press for additional military aid, energy infrastructure support, and diplomatic backing to sustain its resistance against Moscow. By placing Ukraine alongside migration as the summit's top priority, Starmer signalled that Britain remains committed to both defending European security and addressing the humanitarian fallout of the conflict. The timing of the Metropolitan Police scandal has complicated Starmer's agenda as he seeks to project strong leadership abroad while responding to domestic concerns at home. The Prime Minister's acknowledgement of the BBC investigation, despite admitting he had not yet viewed the full footage, reflected the urgency of the issue and his recognition that public confidence in law enforcement is foundational to a functioning democracy. The call for a robust response was widely interpreted as a message to the Metropolitan Police Commissioner that cosmetic measures would not suffice. The force, which has faced a series of crises in recent years, is now under pressure to demonstrate concrete reform. The BBC's revelations reportedly include evidence of discriminatory language and behaviour among serving officers, further fuelling long-standing demands for structural change within the Metropolitan Police. Civil society groups and human rights organisations have warned that such behaviour undermines not only the integrity of the force, but also the broader relationship between law enforcement and the communities they serve. Starmer's comments suggest that he views this as more than an internal disciplinary matter, framing it instead as a question of restoring the social contract between citizens and the institutions meant to protect them. The Prime Minister's arrival in Copenhagen was marked by questions from both British and international journalists who pressed him on whether the UK government would push for independent oversight or further legislative reforms to address police misconduct. While Starmer refrained from outlining specific policy measures during his brief remarks, his choice of words indicated a readiness to hold the leadership of the Metropolitan Police accountable for implementing meaningful change. Starmer's presence at the Copenhagen meeting served as a reminder of the UK's ongoing engagement with its European neighbours, despite leaving the European Union. The European Political Community, a forum designed to encourage collaboration among EU and non-EU countries on shared challenges, has become an increasingly significant platform for Britain to influence discussions on security, migration, and foreign policy. For Starmer, the summit represented an opportunity to reinforce Britain's position as a reliable partner on continental issues, while also showcasing his government's pragmatic approach to cross-border challenges. The Copenhagen gathering brought together leaders from across the continent, including EU member states and other neighbouring nations, with the goal of forging closer cooperation on pressing transnational issues. Migration, driven by conflict, climate change and economic instability in regions such as Africa and the Middle East, remains a politically charged topic across Europe. Several governments have faced mounting public pressure to tighten border controls and crack down on human trafficking networks, while others have emphasised the need for humanitarian protection and fair asylum processes. By advocating for joint responses, Starmer aligned himself with the camp seeking pragmatic, coordinated strategies rather than unilateral measures. Observers noted that Starmer's comments reflected a blend of pragmatism and firmness, acknowledging the complexity of the issues while insisting on the importance of decisive action, both at home and abroad. His remarks on the Metropolitan Police served to project an image of a leader unafraid to confront institutional failings, even as he worked to maintain focus on international challenges. By emphasising collaboration on migration and continued pressure on Russia over its war in Ukraine, Starmer positioned himself as a proponent of collective European resilience in the face of diverse threats. As the summit proceeded behind closed doors, Starmer's dual message, the need for robust domestic accountability in response to misconduct at home and the importance of international unity on migration and Ukraine, framed the day's political narrative. The BBC investigation into the Metropolitan Police has added a domestic layer of urgency to Starmer's leadership as he navigates both internal reforms and external crises. In Copenhagen, the British Prime Minister made clear that the challenges confronting his government, whether rooted in Westminster or shared across the continent, demand both integrity and cooperation. His final note before entering the summit hall underscored this dual focus, that rebuilding trust at home and reinforcing solidarity abroad are not competing objectives but complementary pillars of effective governance.